Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Co-Chair McCarthy-Vahey, ranking members, Claris Dietra, Senator Summers, members of the committee. For the record, I'm State Representative Brian Lanoue from the 45th House District. I'm here to testify today on 7157, HB 7157. I am also requesting that the committee will consider a joint favorable substitute to tuck the language from 5196 into the bill. Essentially, that would create a short form death certificate process, which would omit some relatively some intrusive information. Here to testify and to give very compelling testimony with me is Mrs. Natasha Mozden from Griswold, to share her story and background on the impetus of this bill.
Good morning, distinguished members of the committee, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Natasha Mozden. I am a constituent of Brian Lanoue, and I'm a grieving mother. On July 18th, 2024, I lost my only child, my son Kane Sherman, to suicide, an experience that has been the most painful of my life. Beyond the emotional toll, I'm faced with the difficult task of managing my son's estate, including submitting his death certificate. Each time I have to share that document, I am forced to confront deeply personal details about his passing. The current Connecticut death certificate includes the cause and the manner of his death, even in situations where that information is unnecessary. Sharing these details repeatedly at banks, post offices, even his place of work and business has been an intrusive and painful process. I support HB 7157 and urge the inclusion of language from HB 5196, which would create an option for a short form death certificate. This version would confirm an individual's passing without disclosing the cause or manner of his death. It is a compassionate option that respects the privacies of families and protects professionals from unnecessary exposure to sensitive information. This bill does not replace the long form certificate, but offers a choice. At least 22 other states already provide this as an option. It helps protect grieving families from unnecessary pain and respects the dignity of our loved ones. I respectfully ask the committee to support HB 7157 with the inclusion of this vital language. This change is more than administrative. It is a compassionate step towards protecting the privacy and emotional well-being of grieving families in Connecticut. I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mozden, for your testimony. Thank you, Representative, for your advocacy on this behalf, on your constituents' behalf, but also on behalf of so many more families in our state. We hear you. As I mentioned in the beginning of the public hearing, that these bills are not complete. We are working on these, and because of the time limitations, these are not in the original form that we would like it to be, but your testimony makes it much more real and important for all of us to make sure we hear you and respond. I know my co-chair has a comment, and my ranking member has a comment as well. So Representative Claris Dietra, you go ahead first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here today, sharing your story, and I'm so sorry for your loss. And thank you, Rep. Lanoue, for bringing this very important issue to the attention of the Public Health Committee. So just for clarification, can you just explain to the committee and everybody out there the difference between the long form and the short form?
Yes, perfect. Thank you, Representative, for that question. Basically, the short form would be a companion or divisional form of the long form. So it does nothing for it. Does not touch the long form. Does not change it in any way. Does not change the process. The short form has all the same information that a long form would have, just more abbreviated, less intrusive. So the cause and manner of death, going into the intimate details of how somebody passed away, would be excluded. So it would act as an official document to establish who the person is and that the person is deceased.
Just to reiterate, so the short form does not have the cause of death on it?
That's correct.
Correct, okay, thank you. And then why can't this process just happen with the registrar, where they could redact that section for the person, for the constituent?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question, Representative. And I have gotten that before from other folks. You know, if I said to you, Representative Claris Dietrich, whatever you do, do not think of purple shoes. Get purple shoes out of your mind. Don't think about them. Remove purple shoes from your mind. In your mind's view, you're thinking of purple shoes. In a redacted death certificate form, this is Kane's death certificate. Now, if we were to redact, what you see here is blackened out, darkened out. It brings somebody's eyes right to that place where it's the cause and manner of death, and this is all blackened out. So immediately it would raise somebody's curiosity, saying, oh, that's weird. They don't want to release the cause and manner of death. I wonder why. I wonder what's going on there. And it stimulates a very unwelcome curiosity. And that could be enough to trigger somebody to go and get the long form and get all the information, create unnecessary gossip. So I think with the redaction, that could have that implication. A short form is clean. It would be complete. It would just not have that information on there. Those fields would not populate, would not be present, and it looks like a complete, clean form.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. And one final question. How many other states do this short form?
Thank you, great question. I can tell you there's at least 22 that have a short form. They go even go further than what we're doing here. This is just a matter of creating it. So there's at least 22, and I can tell you some of the states are as ocean blue as Oregon and Washington, to ruby red as Texas, South Carolina, and Tennessee. So this is across the entire country, political spectrum. A lot of states recognize the need for the short form.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the answers to those questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Representative Kristen McCarthy-Vahey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Representative Lanoue and Ms. Mozden, thank you for coming here to share your story, and your courage is inspiring. It's very difficult and painful to share, and we can only imagine what you've been through. The one thing that I want to say is that I'm thinking about this as you testify, is that we have options for birth certificates. That's a similar option. Do you want to, you're nodding, would you like to comment on that?
I agree with you 100%. We have a short form birth certificate in the state of Connecticut. It would be along the same lines. You pull the same data from the same database as the long form. It would just be a shortened version, even much like a passport card that we do federally. So it kind of makes sense to have that ability to protect privacy.
Thank you for that. So as is often the case here, and this is for you, Rep. Lanoue, we may desire to do something, and sometimes there are some administrative hurdles. Can you just share what some of the conversations that you've had with the department about this and what some of those might be?
Yeah, I think they have indicated that the technology is there. We can do it. I think the only pushback I've received is there's a one-time cost estimated between $50,000 and $100,000 to get the software up to date to make room for the short form technology.
Thank you for that. And thank you both for testifying today. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Representative Reddington Hughes.
Well, thank you for your courage being here today and for bringing this really important point up. My question has to do with the long form itself. And in what cases would the detailed information of somebody's death and the manner of it be required for anything in the state?
For example, my son banked at a local bank in the community that he worked in a community that I live in as well, in Griswold. I had to freeze his accounts prior to being named the executor of the estate, and with that, I had to bring his death certificate to the bank, to the teller in front of, who has interacted with my son and myself multiple times. She reviews that, takes the copy, as is standard for the bank to do that, and she knows every single detail and the manner of which, how my son died. And in this world of no privacy and information being spread as fast as possible with the internet, you know, even in conversations, that information went from those eyes to a slew of other people, and with the game of telephone. And I do want to point out, we are not ashamed that our son died by suicide, but we do respect his privacy and his legacy. So this is a part of that.
Yeah. Oh, I understand that, and that really wasn't my question.
yeah,
My
yeah.
question really was, you know, in today's world, in what case would the requirement actually
The
exist?
post office.
That, no, I'm trying to ask in what case would the manner of death actually be requested, okay, by an institution? I understand that the way it is right now,
Yep.
that it has to go for a long form and that information is given freely to them because that is the only way.
Right.
I'm just curious as to what institutions would actually, aside from an insurance company, require the manner of death in order to, you know, close something.
I don't think that there is a necessary requirement outside of life insurance or his pension, that kind of vital statistic information it would be, but there isn't another place where they need to know that.
Yeah, well, thank you.
I appreciate that.
If I just may add to Representative, if I may, it was certainly acknowledged there is instances where the long form is necessary, you know, insurance, like as Mrs. Mozden said, insurance benefits. Obviously, the Department of Public Health to sort of have to quantify people who pass and for what reasons. We understand there's a need where those they have to be accessible. And I want to just be clear too, this legislation that we're talking about, in no way do we try to restrict the long form process, current law, present law, and, or even mandate to any sort of sector of the economy what form they have to accept over another. We just hope with most of the examples given that it will happen organically, and when the bank, the post office, DMVs will just organically accept the short form as enough to suffice the reason for providing it.
Thank you.
I'll have Senator Summers, followed by Representative Paletta, and followed by Representative Kennedy. Senator Summers, you're on.
Yes, good morning, and thank you for being here. And you are also one of my constituents, so I hope we get to talk in more detail. I wish I had known about this bill. I would have really, before you submitted it, Brian, I would have really tried to push this through public health as one of the leaders on public health. With that being said, I want to thank you for being here. I'm very sorry for the loss that you have endured. That's something no parent should have to go through. And I do have a question for you. If we are able to create the short form, what is the process, or what is the exclusion? I don't think anybody would, but what happens if somebody came in and said, well, I want to see the long form? Do they still have access to the long form if they have no reason for that, if they've been given a short form?
Are you saying like the bank or the post office or the DMV?
Is that, do you see that being an issue? I'm just asking.
I
It seems
don't, because the way it exists already as a birth certificate or a short form passport card, I think that we could just adopt the new process.
Okay, and, I see this as being a very valid idea, just like we have for birth certificates. And Brian, you and I can talk, because I will try to do everything I can in appropriations to see what we can do to find the funding for the software change. And again, I'm sorry for your tragedy and your loss in your family. Thank you for being here. It's very brave, and, doing this for future families that don't have to endure what you have. And I appreciate your being here and taking time out of your day, and I look forward to meeting you someday.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Take care.
Representative Paletta.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here, and I'm very sorry for your loss. As someone who's known, sadly, a few individuals in the same circumstance, I can understand your request for privacy. I have two brief questions, and you may be able to help me, or Rep. Lanoue may be able to help me. One, in terms of the HIPAA laws, and I'm not an expert on HIPAA laws, shouldn't there be some sort of disclaimer, or if you choose not to disclose the manner of the death due to a violation of a HIPAA law, shouldn't there be a disclaimer on there that gives you the option not to disclose it?
Yeah, I certainly agree with what you're saying, Representative. That can certainly be something the committee and the legislature should explore, and I would welcome that. But for the purposes of this legislation, we're creating the form, which I think is a big first step. As far as those other discussions, I think that may be a discussion for another day, another legislative year. But I think it's imperative we get the form created.
Thank you, and I agree with your proposal. And again, as somebody who has known, sadly, a few families that have gone through this, I understand the urgency and the request that you have to go through this. And as I was talking to my good colleague here to my right, unless this has to do with medical or insurance purposes, I don't really think anyone should know unless you decide to make it known. And I think it's, again, when you see the form and everything, the redacted, and it's all blacked out, I think it really draws your attention there. So I'm supportive of the concept, but thank you for having enough courage to come here and tell your story.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me, and thank you, Representative Lanoue and Ms. Mozden for being here. A number of my questions have already been asked, but I just want to clarify, if you don't mind going through it again. If we had had this form now, how would that have changed what you went through with your son's passing? For you, Mr. Chairman.
For me, it would have saved me a lot of tears in a lot of parking lots, or facing those people again and seeing them. If I could offer this to another parent, to another family, to make sure that they don't feel that every time that you take that piece of paper out, it's another paper cut, it's another salt to the wound. And what I really want to make clear is this isn't just protective of families and executors of estates. It also protects the person that's receiving that information that may not have the capacity to understand that information, or they're liking it to a tragedy that's happened to them as well. So it's protecting the public and the families.
Thank you, Ms. Mozden. I really appreciate that response, and I'm sorry I had to put you through that again to ask that
okay.
question.
Thank you.
But you showed tremendous courage and strength today. My sincere condolences on the loss of your son. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much. Seeing no other comments, thank you so much for both of you for being here this morning. We hear you loud and clear.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.